Race, turning to learning. Racism has been a difficult part of our nation's story. Over the years, it has taken many forms and still exists today. Learning about race and racism is a process. Responding to racism is a skill that must be learned. Adoptive parents in a transracial family might start out thinking they can protect their child inside the family bubble, that it doesn't matter how the rest of the world thinks about race. But in the end, racism is a fact of life and a part of human history embedded in our culture. You need to become more racially aware as you take on the role of a parent in a transracial family. Understanding racism in its many forms makes you a better advocate for your child and a better parent. In this video, we will identify ways to learn about racism and develop the skills to interrupt racism and respond effectively. One way to learn is to become familiar with the topic by exploring media that focus on racial issues. Recognize that not all racism is overt. Discuss race issues with your family and with members of your community. Finally, seek out experts and allies, people who study race and racism and can help you navigate these issues. Reading and exploring media, such as books, documentaries, magazines, and journals, will help you develop a historic and current understanding of race and racism. This knowledge is the foundation of your ability to recognize racism. As you become more informed about the topic, you will recognize that not all racism is overt. Much of it is subtle. What comes to mind when you hear the word racism? The KKK? Internment camps? People yelling racial slurs? It is common for us to think of racism as violent and extreme as we conjure frightening images from the past. And while the history of racism is something that we must learn from and never forget, the reality today is that, in the United States, people of color are more likely to face racism that is subtle or covert, not violent or outwardly hostile. Yet it still has a malevolent effect on people's lives and our society as a whole. Covert racism is perpetrated by both individuals and institutions. It can be hard to recognize both by the victims and the perpetrators. Let's take a look at some examples of how people might experience covert racism.